Hello and welcome everyone to another Sales Hacker webinar. If this is your first one, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you've been a long time Sales Hacker community, we're always lucky to have you. This is going to be a great discussion. I'm excited for this one. I can see people kind of pouring in now. So I'll get some of the boring stuff out of the way as people get in here. So quick housekeeping. So these are all recorded. So if you got to jump off and close a deal, you got to go to your one-on-one, who knows, maybe you got a crying baby in the background. These are all recorded. So we will send this out to you within about 24 hours when we wrap up. Number two, I've got an incredible guest and me and Steve, we get to talk a few times. We've done a podcast together. But we really do these live versions are for the community. So it's always a lot more fun for myself, for our guests, when we know who we're hanging out with. So there is a chat feature there. We would love to hear from you. Name, title, what company you're with, say hello. And then we're going to be talking through this topic, running through kind of a fireside chat, if you will. And we have some points we really want to make sure that we get through, but we also want to answer your questions. So there's a Q&A feature. It's different than the chat. I'll be manning that. And if you have any very specific, particular questions for your unique business, please get them in there. And if they're relevant to what we're discussing, I'll get to them right away. If it's a little bit out of left field, we may wait till the end. But that's the boring stuff out of the way. So what we're talking about today is evolving your revenue strategies for 2021 growth. It's crazy that we're already talking about 2021, but we are. And without further ado, I want to introduce my guest. I am joined by Steve DeMarco, who is the CRO over at LeanData. Steve, welcome, brother.
Thank you very much, Scott. Great to be here. Great to be talking to you again, and looking forward to today's discussion. I think it's a really timely one, and hopefully, we can keep everybody pretty interested and share some great thoughts.
Totally. And quick shout out, some people joining us. Ezekiel, digital sales coordinator over at WorkerBee TV. We have Mackenzie at Mojo Trek from Chicago in the house. And Simon Madri, what's up, everyone? Thanks so much for hanging out. All right, so first things first, I think it's always fun, just for context of those who are joining us today, is can we just hear the quick superhero origin story of Steve? How did you get to become a CRO at such a cool, fast-growing company?
Well, I wish it was as exciting as I got bit by a spider and then here I am, but it isn't. It was a long process, Scott, actually. It was funny. I was just chatting before the webinar, and someone asked me, LeanData just finished our Q3 yesterday. So September 30th was the finish of our Q3, and we're now headlong into Q4, day one. And I was thinking about it. We had a great finish to the quarter, so we're extremely happy, celebrating a little bit as much as we can these days together. And it dawned on me, and someone said, well, how many quarter closes has this been for you? And I calculated it's about 105, give or take, 105 quarters. And that's a lot of quarters, and it spans a 25 plus year sales career. And I've loved every minute of it. I'd love to say that, every quarter was as awesome as last quarter, but there's full of ups and downs. And to be honest, when I first started my sales career, I thought, hey, I'll do this for, a couple of years, but I don't know if I can handle this constant quarterly pressure. And here I am 25 years later, still doing it. I started out as an engineer. I enjoyed technology. I went to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. I know I wanted to be in the technology space, but I really didn't know that I wanted to be in sales until I had my first sales job. And that was actually in college while I was going to school at Cal Poly, and I got a job selling books door to door. And probably the hardest job I've ever had to this day. That was probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever had and one of the most rewarding. But that's where I did, I guess, pardon the pun, got bit by the bug, the sales bug. and knew at that point I wanted to apply my technology background, my engineering background to sales. And so I was able to do that early on. Was an inside sales rep, picking up the phone, prospecting, like I think a lot of our sales professionals today started. I did the exact same thing at a company called Silicon Graphics back in the mid 90s in Silicon Valley. The heart of Silicon Valley. Was a fun ride. Not only did I learn a ton, which helped propel me into my sales career, because since then I've been working at a variety of different hardware and software companies, and of course today find myself here at LeanData. But I met some phenomenal people that I still consider colleagues, friends, still go to for advice to this very day. And a lot of them are CROs, CEOs, and some of them are still just carrying a bag and individual contributor sales reps. And all of them have been extremely valuable to me. So my advice to a lot of the folks that are early on in their careers right now is get to know your colleagues. Don't burn any bridges. Be a good colleague. And that relationship you make will reciprocate and pay back in the future, because every single one of the relationships I made was super important. But here I am today, and a lot of what I do, I still enjoy it, but I really love working with my team and building my team. And my goal is to always, especially folks that are early on in their sales careers, helping them launch into a career, because it's been a wonderful career for me. Hopefully still will be going forward, but I've loved every second of it. And I think it's just one of the best professions in the world. So here we are, and I'm still loving it.
Amen to that. And I think everyone on this call hopefully also believes that this is the best profession in the world. I think it is. Those part of the sales hacker community, I think so too. So I asked you this question before as we were kind of in the waiting room, and I'm going to ask it again because I thought it was an interesting answer. So 105 quarters. So that's a lot of ups and a lot of downs. You know, that's a lot of mountaintops and a lot of deep crevices of hopelessness, if you'll call it.
Yeah.
After 105 quarters, are the highs still as high and are the lows still as low, or do you start to be able to maybe manage them better?
Yeah, no, it was a great question, and it really got me thinking, Scott. On one hand, I think, there's definitely an emotional aspect to sales. It's not easy to get up every single day and try and keep yourself up and do the things you need to do. There's a lot of books that have been written and seminars and all kinds of, mechanisms to try and help salespeople stay motivated. And so you have to be I think a somewhat sensitive and there has to be an emotional aspect to this to get yourself fired up every day the way you need to. So you never want to dampen those. And so the highs to me still feel incredibly great. I mean, we just experienced here at LeanData over the past, few weeks as we were closing the quarter, some of the deals we closed. I mean, we felt the highs, and you don't want to diminish that. You don't want to dampen that. And similarly, this very same year, we had some lows. I'm sure that everybody did with everything that's going on, and where you're kind of thinking, man, this is rough. And I think the key thing is to not let those highs and lows affect your focus and your job. So you have to sort of dampen them in certain ways, but you still have to feel the feeling that you get, because that's, quite frankly, that feeling that you can't be numb to the highs, because that's what rewards you. That's what keeps you fired up and gets you up every day. And you can't be numb to the lows either, because that's what sort of forces you to act differently, to take action, to change, to course correct if you need to. So you can never dampen those things. But a lot of it is how you react to them. As an experienced sales professional, I've realized, your reaction, especially as a sales leader and a CRO, that affects people around you. So that you never want them to see you, going too crazy when things are great, and you never want to see them to see you acting too low when things get tough. You want to keep it even keeled, because people need sales leadership to sort of exude that confidence. And so it's an interesting answer, I think, from the perspective of, you want to feel the feelings, but at the same time, you want to react accordingly and professionally to make sure that, people don't get carried away or read into things too much. But yeah, it's important to be able to do that.
Yeah. I think that's a great answer. And what I kind of hearing there, which I agree with, is let yourself feel the feelings, go through it. But publicly, you gotta have some sort of calm demeanor.
That's right.
And I think something you said there, like let yourself feel those, is so important. I know for me and a lot of like top performers I've talked to, they actually hate losing more than they like winning. So they love to win, of course, but it's that feeling you get when you lose that I'm never going to let that happen again. That kind of propels you forward. So you can use some of those as fuel.
Yeah, that's 100% right. I mean, the losses are really where you learn the most, I think. But again, you can't let it get you so down. I mean, hating losing is great. I think no one likes to lose. But at the same time, looking at it objectively and saying, okay, what do I learn? How do I get better? How do I keep that from happening again? That's where you have to sort of quell the utter disappointment and quell maybe those really emotional feelings and say, okay, I'm going to learn from this. And then hopefully it makes you better. And then as far as the highs are concerned, I mean, the day that I don't get fired up when one of my sales folks closes a deal is the day I hang them up, right? Because there's nothing more gratifying than that. And nowadays I love to share it with the team. I love it when especially if the sales rep, they close their first deal. I mean, there's nothing better, so but it's 100% right. You've got to keep things in check and learn from them, kind of on both sides of the equation.
Totally. All right. So let's dive into this topic. And I want to, before we get to it, I always love doing a couple polls because it's a really interesting chance to kind of read the audience, see how people are feeling, and get some data that's really unique. So, first one, I want to know, what are the most pressing challenges that you're facing today? And there could be more than just what we have here, but out of these ones, is it booking meetings? You can't just get that initial foot in the door. Is it getting deals unstuck? Like you're getting halfway there and then, something is unstuck. Greater deal scrutiny, is it just lengthening those? Closing opportunities in a timely manner, or collaborating with your now virtual team, getting everyone in a room and doing that kind of deal assessment. So let's go ahead and launch that.
Interesting.
All right. What do you, without skewing the results too much, Steve, what do you guess might be the case?
These days, just getting people to respond and talk to you and just so you can at least, have a conversation with them. I mean, that's just tough these days. People's schedules are packed. It's become actually, a little more difficult, or, it's always been difficult, but it's changed. And whenever there's change, that creates, I think, more challenge. So I think getting those meetings is one aspect of challenge that's really challenging these days. And then of course, closing opportunities in a timely manner. We just learned a lot this last quarter that we just closed. And I have some theories as to why that's also become somewhat more challenging and different nowadays than it used to be. So that timing of closure and being able to peg it and be confident about, hey, this is going to close. That's tough. I'm finding that's manifesting itself in my team, and people are afraid to commit deals. We still kind of have that whole, hey, this is expected, this is committed. That's a tough word for some people, some sales reps to really grab onto, and we're not in the kind of company that says, oh, your commit is written in blood, I mean, but your commit should be reliable. And I find that these days it's a little tougher for sales reps to say, yeah, definitely, absolutely, we're going to get that closed by this date. And I think there's some valid reasons why that's the case. So I think that's
all right. Let's see how that went. We'll go 3, 2, 1, and we will close it. Okay. So yeah, right on cue, Steve. You almost nailed it. So 54% say that booking meetings is the most pressing challenge that they're having right now. 29%, the runner-up, is getting deals unstuck. So they're just stuck in the pipeline for some reason. And then 17% is what you said, closing opportunities in a timely manner. So that's interesting. When you hear that, what are some, you mentioned you had a couple theories there. I'd love to hear some of those theories.
Yeah, no, well, again, predictability is critical these days, as it always is in sales. That's nothing new. It's just getting a little more difficult, I think, to predict things. And part of it is because of the economy, and there's companies that are doing really well, and there's companies that are suffering from the situation that's going on, and that unpredictability obviously causes challenges in being able to forecast and things like that. I think that one area, the closing opportunities in a timely manner, a lot of companies are still working from home, and I think when you think about how processes get completed, a purchasing process, someone having to go and get multiple signatures on a document. In the days where everyone was in an office or there was a headquarters, someone could just walk up to somebody's desk and say, "Hey, can you get that done, please?" Or just kind of flag them down. If there's a CFO or someone that needs to sign something, they could poke their head in the office and say, "Hey, I'm waiting for this thing to sign. Can you sign that before the day's out?" Well, you can't do that anymore. I think that informal communication that we're missing because everybody's working from home is actually making it difficult. And I'm coaching my sales team to say, hey, take that into consideration. If you're going to leave a deal to the last couple days to work its way through it, really understanding that what we call the paper process, right? What paperwork what's the process it has to go through at the prospects, in the prospects process, what has to happen, who has to sign, where are they? Really understanding that is key, because if you don't, that informal communication is missing. People have to get time on calendars, which is very difficult. They have to make sure that the person who signs has time to review things. That's making it a challenge. And so I think that's one of the reasons why closing opportunities when you think they're going to close is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw this. I agree. I saw this thing on LinkedIn the other day, and a leader was coaching their team to look critically at what the timelines that they had in the past, and then 3x them. So they're going, 3x those timelines.
Absolutely.
And that's part of it is exactly that. You got to mobilize people, and it's much harder when they're not in person. Okay, I want to double tap on one thing here, and then kind of because I think a huge problem right now is forecast accuracy. And I think 2020 into 2021, it's just going to get weirder, I think. So I want to see how much confidence do you have, and we'll launch another poll, in your pipeline health and kind of the accuracy of your forecast. I'm thinking we're going to be on the not very confident side. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree. It's just, kind of like nailing the process and getting deals done on time. This is I think an aspect of that. It's just different nowadays. And so people are still somewhat learning and feeling out what the effect is,
Yeah. All right, let's let that run for 3, 2, 1. All right, we have 43% being the winner, which is somewhat confident. So, and then 38% is not confident at all. So what is that? A total of 81% are either somewhat confident or not confident, which is a scary state of affairs. 19%, kudos to all of you, are as confident as usual. We've got no one saying that they're very confident right now. Mm-hmm. Steve, does that surprise you?
Not at all.
Guessing not.
Not at all. I think in any forecasting is a difficult thing to do in a normal situation, right? It's not easy. It takes years of understanding and practice, and then companies. I think it's really important that companies have a standardized process, and they enable their sales teams to understand, how to forecast, and you bring in lots of different methodologies, et cetera. Like we use MEDPIC. I think MEDPIC, if everybody understands what that is, it's a set of qualification criteria by which you can say, hey, is this deal closable? Do we have the metrics and understand how they're going to be evaluating the solution? Do we know who the economic buyer is? Do we know the decision process, the decision maker, et cetera, et cetera? All those letters are an acronym. If you use tools like that, you can get better. You can get more precision, which I think is really important. But today, it's very difficult, I think, to glean a lot of that information, and it's also, like I said, it's more difficult, especially when you're not necessarily working face to face with prospects, to truly understand the process that a deal has to go through to get closed. And so I think that this is the concept of developing a champion in an account, someone who's really in that account that you can call a champion, not just a coach. Coach is great, they'll give you information, but a champion is somebody that truly is there trying to help you get this deal done. That concept becomes so incredibly important nowadays, Scott, because you need someone on the inside that's giving you the straight scoop. Because even if it's bad news, a champion will give you the bad news and say, look, we have to go through a budgeting process. We're not going to get this done until November. You need to know that stuff in order to peg the deal and to be able to forecast it accurately. And so I think the notion of having someone that's truly giving you the truthful situation of an opportunity is really, really key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Now, so unbelievably important, and can help that forecast accuracy go up, because you can just ask them, is this actually going to get done? And if it's a true champion, like you said, some of the biggest benefits of a true champion are them telling you the bad stuff, the stuff that happens behind closed doors that you are not privy to. And then you get blindsided 2 months later when you think it's coming in. So
right.
I love that call.
A champion won't go dark on you at the end. They're going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. And that's really what you want, because if you can learn about, and we had an account exec that I think had a great quarter and learned a ton, understand this themselves. I said, look, if you're going to get a no, or if we're going to find out this deal's going to push, let's figure it out early, because maybe there's something we can do. And so a lot of it is them just asking the question, the direct question. A lot of salespeople, and it's a funny dynamic, and I'm not, but there's some salespeople that they don't want to ask those tough questions, because you don't want to hear that your Fabergé egg of a deal is going to break. No one wants to hear that. But I tell my reps, I go, break the egg, find out, because it's one of two things going to happen. If you find out it's not going to happen and you find out early enough, maybe you can affect that. Maybe you can understand, is it a budgeting issue? Is it a cash flow situation? Is there something we can do to alleviate any perceived risk? Are there people that we need to talk to? If you find this out with 2 days left to go in the quarter, well, it's probably not a whole lot you can do. But if you find out with several weeks in the quarter, maybe there's something you can do. So asking those questions and then identifying that champion that's going to tell you the truth. Just that way you can react and you can figure it out. And of course, that all helps you forecast more effectively.
Yeah. Sure. I had a leader once say the tough questions help you avoid tougher situations down the line, and you got to do it.
Very truthful statement for sure.
Yeah, I feel like we're at a point. So we're at it's not the end of our quarter. It's in a month from now. So we're kind of at that stage now where we're cleaning out the deals that are the no's, right? That we're going to push. That's like a big focus of that pipeline cleanup. All right. So shifting gears a little bit. So that was really helpful. Thank you everyone for participating in those polls. That was some great insight. So let's dive straight into it. So we're talking about, 2021, how to plan for the future. I think some of the best way to plan for the future is look at the past, right? So how have you had to adjust your go-to-market strategy since, everything went down, February, March kind of timeframe? What's been working and what's not been working?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And then, gosh, we could probably write books on this topic, Scott. But it has been really interesting, and we've all had to be pretty quick studies, over the past several months, because things definitely got a little weird, and we all had to figure it out pretty quickly and figure out how to course correct. One of the things that we really thought about, and we're going to carry into next year, is just more precision as it relates to the data. And when I say precision, I mean making sure our data, our database of target accounts, we've really upgraded that. We intended to all along, and that's probably just a lot of people saying, well, of course, Steve, of course you do that. But I think it's more meaningful and more important now than ever, that having that precise data, having good contact information, making sure that you really understand your ICP and the key personas. And so that's a real, I kind of categorize things in precision, preparation, and then value fast. Those are the three kind of key aspects that we're trying to incorporate here and then going into next year. And precision, as I mentioned, has a lot to do with the data, being precise, salespeople knowing who they're targeting and what personas they're actually trying to reach, having the information to do that. And then when you do, as that poll stated, it's so difficult to get meetings nowadays. So you don't have meetings to waste, right? So you have to prepare for every single interaction with a company, right? Because you might only get one chance. You don't know when, it's not like people can just, yeah, let's meet again next week. So, preparation is really critical. So we're doing a lot of enablement and giving our team a lot of tools so they know, really how to prepare for every interaction. And then, as I mentioned, I think people are so inundated with meetings these days. I have a friend who his calendar was always full, but now he says, yeah, Steve, I have 15-minute meetings for 8 hours through my calendar, and I rarely get breaks. So when you do get somebody who's going to dedicate that chunk of time to you as a salesperson, you have to get to value fast. You don't have a lot of time for the flowery stuff. I mean, yeah, you want to build a relationship or whatever, but I think it's just become so important to nail the value fast, because people are going to make decisions fairly quickly as to whether or not they want to continue on with this conversation or whether or not they think, hey, I have other priorities. So we all have to make a priority. So it's those three concepts that we're really bringing into this final quarter and going into 2021. And so we're doing all the things that we need to do, upgrading our database, making sure that we have the right data. We're spending a lot of time enabling our team, recrafting our messaging in our different communication mechanisms, whether it's PowerPoint or written emails or even, doing a lot of verbal practice. How do you leave a good voicemail? What should you say? And then, of course, really honing our value story so that we know for a specific persona and a specific type of company, this is the value that LeanData brings to them. So all of those things I think are key. And again, these aren't sort of magical things. I mean, the best reps already do this stuff, but I think to the point we were talking about before, you just have to be very, very good at this these days. There's no sort of room for mediocrity in any of those areas. And so I think that's really the focus.
Mm-hmm. I think that's super, super valuable. And quick shout out to Giselle saying it's been very helpful. She has to jump off. We'll see you next time, Giselle. But yeah, Steve, so precision, preparation, value fast. Preparation, second one. I want to talk about that a little bit. Something I've been just recently really thinking about because the at-bats have gone down. So I think in peacetime, we'll call it,
yeah,
you can afford to be, I don't want to say sloppy, but you know, it's, yeah, a little more complacent, if you will. You've got another meeting coming up with this, particularly you get a shot in the enterprise or strategic, these aren't coming around again. And I have a theory that I think we're going to see even in kind of like mid-level SaaS companies. Now some bigger companies do this, but I think we're going to see a creation of some sort of like analyst role for our account executives so that this person can put together, essentially a hypothesis. So they're going to read all the earnings reports. They're going to see where these companies are growing and where they're contracting and put together a hypothesis to bring to the table. Because like you said, like you got to show value fast. And if this person is giving you, that 30-minute slot on their calendar, do they want to just you to pepper them with questions? No, not at that level. You know?
Yeah.
The homework needs to get done. So, you mentioned that's kind of what the best reps already do. Have you ever thought of creating some sort of kind of analyst style role
Boy,
for
I just
support?
wrote it down because I think I'm gonna put that into the plan for for next year. But you're 100% right, and I think it's unfair. I think your concept is a great one because right now we're asking all the AEs and the reps themselves to be that analyst, and to a certain extent, the good reps can, but it does take a lot of time. We at a minimum have to show them how to do this very quickly and effectively. You know, how to quickly
Yes.
and what kind of information is pertinent and how to use it at a minimum.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of having a resource that really can help them do that more effectively, and whether it's part of like a demand gen marketing team or they work directly with the sales team. Because yeah, you're right. I'm a big believer that, you know, a lot of people think about discovery. Oh, I'm going to get a phone call. I'm going to ask this guy a bunch of questions or this girl about a bunch of questions about their business, and then they're going to give me the answers, and then I'm going to craft my look. You haven't earned the right to ask a bunch of questions.
Totally.
You know, you really haven't. So I tell my sales team, it's like, look, you have to do your homework ahead of the call, know the business, understand, look at their press releases, look at any initiatives that their sales leadership or their heads of their CEOs talking about. Craft those into a value proposition to say, companies like yours that are doing lots of M&A, or companies like yours that are growing the rate you're growing. I understand you're growing at this rate. Companies like that. This is why we're such a valuable part of that process. You have to give them something and then earn the right to then start asking questions and then hone your message. But that takes, to your point, preparation. You know, the two phrases that I no longer want to hear from my team are "wing it" and "let's play it by ear." You know, those. If I hear it, you know, and hey, listen, I've been a victim of that myself. I learned early. I can't just wing it. Preparation is everything. And if you go in trying to wing it, figure, yeah, we'll just have a nice conversation and we'll learn some things and we'll figure. You're probably going to blow a really good opportunity. And as we said earlier on, these opportunities are hard to come by these days. These audiences, these meetings. So yeah, 100% agree. I love that idea of the analyst role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think push for it through outreach. I think it would be helpful because sometimes, you know, it's different. There's different skill sets of like what makes sometimes a good enterprise AE and someone who can, you know, quickly draw conclusions and looking at data. Sometimes those are different skill sets. And the interesting thing about this kind of concept too, of putting together whatever this hypothesis is and coming to the table with something with your preparation, is your hypothesis can be wrong. And the great thing is they will naturally show you where it's wrong. And it's a way to do discovery that's much more thoughtful, right? They'll be like, oh, that's a super interesting point, but no, here's actually how it is.
That I agree with that 1,000%. I tell my team, even when putting together business cases or value propositions or ROIs, I say, look, learn what you can from the company, but then put together a value proposition. And the neat thing about doing that is when you present it and say, well, what if it's wrong? What if it doesn't hold water? Awesome. You want them to tell you that value proposition doesn't hold water. Oh, well, tell me why. Well, you know, how do you guys build value propositions? What would be justification in your, it's like, well, we don't care about, you know, productivity on the back end. What we want to do is reduce resources on the front. Okay, great. And now you can start thinking about how your solution could potentially accommodate that value proposition, and you could course correct. But getting that guidance is the first step. And so I really think that that's an important concept is, you know, making a hypothesis, bringing some value, maybe talking about how other companies, you know, value your solution and how they use it and what the value proposition is, and let them poke holes in it. Let them poke holes in it because you're learning the whole time. And basically they're giving you the answer to the test, which is, this is how we have to see this solution in order for us to invest in it. That's the answer to the test. And you're really just trying to, I don't want to say the word provoke in a negative way. I mean, you know, being provocative is not a bad thing if you do it in a healthy, professional way. You're simply trying to conjure up information so that you can use it to craft a message that's going to work for that particular person in that company. So I think it's really, really a great strategy.
Yeah. All right. Another one I want to focus on. So we kind of touched a little bit about kind of preparation value, this idea of precision. And of course, couldn't agree more that, data plays an even more integral role, I think, than it ever has.
Yeah.
Again, we just need to be more precise. Less, we need to be, snipers now, not shotgun blasts so much.
Yep.
So what does your kind of 2H strategy look like? Particularly, let's focus a little bit on the data strategy that you look at. What are you looking at? How are you identifying market segments? How are you using data to create more of that certainty in your pipeline? Can you kind of walk me through the thought process there?
Yeah, it's not easy. Gosh, I don't want to say it's not easy. It's different nowadays. But let's just say in the old days, you can get away with a lot more. I mean, if you had a database full of existing companies broken down by segment, whether you segment by, the revenue that the company achieves, or if you segment by number of employees, companies segment different ways. And you can identify your ICP based on specific industry and size and geography, just those high-level firmographic data points. And if you could come up with an ICP that way, then that's kind of how we used to do it, I think, in the old days. That was great, and you can do that. Today, I think you just have to get so much deeper into a company's, not only understand their firmographic data, but you have to know what tools they use. You have to know what are some of the behaviors, what I've heard some companies call it psychographic data or behavioral data. What are they doing? What are they interested in nowadays? And so then, wow, how do you glean that information? And there's some great tools out there, the Six Senses of the world, the Everstrings, companies that specialize in understanding intent data. And but none of them is in and of itself a magic wand. It's the conglomeration, I think, of everything. Good, accurate data from a Zoom Info or a DNB or someone like that. Then the proper tools, understanding your own, idea of ICP. Well, let's look at our past customers and let's understand where they're getting value. We're going through an exercise right now with our customer base to say, look, what is the value that our longtime customers are really getting from our solution? And how do we articulate that so that we can then go to similar companies that are in the database that are probably all thinking the same thing. They want to grow, they want to expand, and let's explain the value proposition in the terms that our returning and recurring customers that renew with us every single year, they're obviously seeing value. Let's translate that information and convey it in a way that a customer truly can understand. And better yet, if you can get the customers themselves convey that information, it's always better, right? But it all starts with the precision. Who are you telling this story to? LeanData does a lot to help companies automate and orchestrate their go-to-market processes. We have value to marketing, the marketing and marketing ops side of the world. We have value to the sales and sales operations side of the world. We even have value to CFOs that want to understand why they're spending all this money on sales and marketing. Well, LeanData can help that, but that's a very different value proposition for each of those constituents. So it's not only the precision and having the data and knowing who to talk to, but then it's and you said it best, the preparation and understanding what is the story we're going to tell these people. And that's what makes sales so exciting and at the same time very difficult, because salespeople have to be smart, self-aware people to understand, is my message resonating with the right person the right way? But yeah, I think the old way of getting the data, just kind of high-level criteria, firmographic, that's neat. That'll get you to a certain spot, but to really do it right, you have to get deeper into the customer's psychographic data. I really kind of like that word, and truly, trying to figure out and using the right tools to figure out what are they doing, what are they thinking, how are they acting, and are they exhibiting the behavior that a company that needs a solution like ours should be exhibiting, and should we go after them? If you can crack that code, you're going to be so much more precise, and it's going to help immensely. That's what we're shooting for 2021, really leveraging as much of that information as possible.
Yeah. I like that. And it can be almost overwhelming now with the amount of data at our disposal of
Yeah,
where to kind of focus the time. So you said something there that's a little bit off tangent, but I want to double click on it.
sure.
You said this idea of, in a perfect world, your customers kind of sell for you or help you sell. How do you think about that at LeanData? And because I wholeheartedly agree. I think in the future that will be
Yeah,
how everyone wants to buy, right? You think of,
yeah.
for me or you, how do you buy software? You usually call your peer and say, hey, how is
Dude.
this?
Yeah.
Right? How have you used it? Is it works? Here's the pricing I got. Is that what you got? And then like that's done. So how are you thinking about that and enabling your customers or incentivizing your customers to become, your best champions?
Yeah. I'm going to throw a lot of stuff out, Scott, because I agree with you, and I think it's so key. And companies have been doing it for years. Reference selling and sort of customer testimonials. Salesforce really took it to a new level. I think you remember the old days. I used to go to their early Dreamforces and their early world tours. Those regional shows they had, and it was nothing but big giant posters of customers. They used to call them CMR wizards, and they used to have all these names for them. And it was the customers telling the story. It was the customer saying how great the solution was. And so they really took it to a new level. So I think a lot of companies are doing this nowadays, but to your point, it's not as easy. And there's different strategies I think you can use. And we're trying a bunch of them, right? We host, and we're going to plug it later on. And I don't mean to plug it early, but there's a show coming up called OpStars, and that's something. It's a forum for operations professionals, sales and marketing operations professionals. And really, it's just all about customers sharing their story, whether they use LeanData or not, quite frankly, but it's them sharing their story. And certainly if as a vendor, as LeanData, if we can get our customers talking about how they're achieving certain goals, they're achieving their getting good results, and we're part of that story, we're part of that tech stack, that's just validation. And that's what companies are looking for nowadays, because similarly, we talked about how people don't have time to waste, so you have to add value. Companies don't have money to waste. They could spend $5 million a year per salesperson on sales tech. There's so many options out there. They can't do that. They've got to be pretty precise and invest in the tools that they know are going to make a difference. Tools like outreach, LeanData, we hope to be part of that stack, right? They have lots of choices. And so you have to not only as a salesperson map the solution to what they care about, but then that validation is so key. And I think it's just going to be more and more so. That's why, the G2 crowds of the world, where companies can get sort of third-party unbiased references on how your solution works, how you treat them as a customer, do you support them? All of those things are wildly important now. So we're not only are we trying to get our customers to do references for us, like I think a lot of companies are, we're trying to make the customer put them at the forefront of telling the LeanData story, because I can talk to them blue in the face. I'm the CRO here. I'm biased. I think we have a great solution. People are going to buy that to a certain extent. What they're really going to buy is a customer that has a choice to bias or not bias, and that's who's going to resonate. So getting them in front of as much as possible, but then also relying on those, the G2 crowds of the world, and making sure companies can do their research, because as we all hear, companies do 60% of the way through the sales cycle they do on their own, just researching. You want to make sure that research is available to them, and that hopefully it'll express the value that you can offer them. So really, really important.
It is, certainly. And I agree, there's so much tech out there. I read this thing recently, said by 2025, the cost per rep, fully burdened, like rep of technology, is going to be like $5K or something, which is wild, so wild.
It is a lot, and people have to justify every expense now. It's a zero-sum game. They can only buy certain things, and they're going to invest where the values they achieve the value the most. So yeah. 100%.
All right. So we've got about 5 minutes or so here left. And I want to get to this question because I think it's a really important one. And I think it would be remiss if we didn't talk about it. And it's about supporting and enabling your sales organization. So this one is huge right now. Most people are still working from home. Might even have onboarded some new AEs or SDRs. And it's now more important than ever that they get the support, and it's much tougher to support them. How are you thinking about supporting and enabling in this strange time and into 2021?
Yeah, it is, I think, one of the most important things you can do. And quite frankly, I think it's one of the ways that you can show your employees that you care and that, you're investing in them. And that's important. I mean, we like to think that people come to LeanData not only because, we're a great company, have a great solution, they can make money, but also they're going to learn some things. We're going to develop them. We're going to develop them as professionals. And I think it benefits them just from a long-term career standpoint, and certainly benefits LeanData because they're going to be better at their jobs. They're going to be able to execute a sales process more effectively and become better professionals. So we invest heavily. We've always had enablement, but we recently brought on a head of enablement that I've worked with for years. Her name's Julie Rozek. Not sure if she's on this webinar, but she may see it at some point. So plugging Julie, but she's phenomenal. She was actually one of my top account executives for many years at Exactly. Just killed it year after year, and then decided one day, to our LeanData's benefit, she wanted to get an enablement because she thought, hey, I've learned a lot. I think I can share this with people. She's become probably one of the best sales enablement people that are in the industry. And she's here at LeanData, and she's put together a program with the help of many others here at LeanData because we truly care about our sales team knowing and giving them the tools, because it's not fair to ask what we ask of our sales team if we don't give them the tools and the enablement to execute on every aspect of sales. And so there's skill-based enablement, there's product-based enablement, and it's hard because there's so much you want to impart, and they all have their day jobs, so they can't spend hours and hours and hours every week enabling. But we look at it and we think at least a couple hours a week in a 40-hour week, let's say. Hopefully they're probably putting in a little more overtime, but 40-hour week, couple hours definitely should be dedicated in honing, either developing a new skill or honing an existing skill. And that's really what we think about. Even experienced salespeople, we want to put enablement together because, there's those salespeople, and Scott, you probably know them. I've been in a million trainings, I've got it all down. It's like, well, my philosophy is if I'm still learning, which I am, then everybody can still learn. So it's about honing those behaviors, talking about, value propositions advanced 301, where they can really become experts at a certain task or a certain skill and a certain technique. And so we're always doing that. And then, as you know, the world of sales methodology and sales tactics is changing all the time. So we want to continuously bring in the newer concepts that fit within our process that make sense for us, and introduce those to our team as well. And I think ultimately they appreciate it. They realize that this is an investment in them. We're trying to help them become better professionals.
Yeah, I love that. I often say, the minute you say that you've got it figured out is the minute you start losing.
That's right.
It's like the world we live in. And of course, everyone on this webinar knows that because they're taking the time to level up and do some self-development, which I love. All right. So quickly, as we wrap up, I do want to invite everyone who hung out with us till the end. Thank you so much for getting involved. Want to invite everyone to OpStars. So LeanData does an incredible event in OpStars. I've been 2 years in a row. Granted, it was in person. This year will be digital. So excited to check it out. And we'll quickly put up the slides here. I think we have some.
Yeah.
And there we go. Perfect.
Oh, that's the plug on LeanData. There's OpStars right there.
Here's OpStars, and then we'll quickly go back. Here's the plug on LeanData. Couldn't be a bigger fan of LeanData. Huge proponent of this stuff. If you haven't checked them out and you lead a sales team or you're an ops or an enablement, you got to check them out. And then OpsStars is a perfect kind of intro to how they kind of view the world and the rise of ops and rev ops and sales and marketing and operations finally can now kind of work together. But that's the plug. That's all we got.
Thank you very much, Scott.
Of course. And Steve, thank you. You're full of insights. I always enjoy talking with you. Certainly won't be the last time. I'm going to make sure of it. So thank you so much. And for everyone who joined us, appreciate you all, and we'll see you next time.
Great. Thank you. Bye, everybody.